Hey, welcome to the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast with me, Rob Kosberg. Every week, I interview thought leaders and experts who have used a book to grow their income and their impact. So tune in weekly for these interviews so you can learn how to use your own best-selling book and go from hunting for clients and opportunities to instead being the hunted. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Rob Kosberg here with another episode of the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast. I got a great guest for us today, Mike Michalowicz. I want to tell you a little bit about Mike. You probably already know because he has touched millions of lives through his book. I'm a big fan of his book, Profit First, but some of this I didn't know. By Mike's 35th birthday, he had founded and sold 2 multi-million-dollar companies. Confident that he had the formula to success, became a small business angel investor and proceeded to lose his entire fortune. I know how that feels. I've always heard that it's difficult to spend multi-millions, but you can always invest it away.
Truth. Hashtag truth.
Mike's, of course, the creator of Profit First. Currently, Mike leads 2 multi-million-dollar ventures as he tests his latest business research for his books. Former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and business makeover specialist on MSNBC. And of course, Mike speaks on stages all over the world, the author of Fix This Next, Clockwork, Profit First, Surge, The Pumpkin Plan, and of course, the Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. So Mike, great to have you on the show, my friend. And thanks for, I love the humility. I love, the way you share the truth right out of the gate with the bio.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it's important. When I hear people read my bio, and thank you for reading that, at first I'm like, oh my God, I sound like such a tool. It's just like, oh, this guy just ego.
He's so great. He's so great.
Yeah, oh my God. I just want to punch myself in the face.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reality is those moments are just simple short blips and highlights I've experienced.
Right.
I've been in the trough too.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually where humanity's really formed anyways, those low points.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that. I have said several times when people have read my bio, I've said things like, boy, that's so great. It sounds like I wrote it.
Yeah, right.
It makes me sound so good.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. There's kind of 2 tracks we take always. The first part is I want to talk about your magic and what you're doing with your books to really help people, and then talk a little bit about your books and how they've helped you.
Yeah.
Tell us the 2 ventures that you have right now in your business. How are those things leading to content creation for new books for you right now, or maybe your most recent book? What does that look like?
Yeah. So what I did, which is kind of, I think, unique for authors, is I wrote books, which then kind of defines the intellectual property or the idea and concept. And then I formed licensees. I have companies that acquire the rights to teach or form a company around it. So that bio is kind of old. We're in our 5th company behind one of these books.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it's a great model. 2 of those businesses, though, I'm an active participant and shareholder. The other one, I'm basically the spokesperson for the company, but they're run by others. 2 others I'm involved in. What's great is I'm in contact, because they all serve entrepreneurs, with every type of entrepreneur every single day. Yeah. Yesterday, literally was connected with a violinist, a freelancer violinist who is using Profit First as a system to support their life. And they were able to through the COVID pandemic when live performances went away. The day before, I was talking with people that raise horses in Canberra, Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, they raise these different horses and they use one of my books, Clockwork, for business efficiency. It's awesome to hear their stories and their applications of it. It yields 2 things. One is when I put the books out there, they aren't perfect. It's an opportunity to release R&Es, which is revised and expanded editions of the books. And I'm just now contracted to re-release Clockwork based upon stuff I've learned. But the other thing too is they also present their new challenges. So I've written some books, but I've only scratched the surface on the problems that are being experienced by entrepreneurs. And so when I hear a recurring theme from all these people I'm in touch with, I'm like, oh, that's something I'm experiencing too. I got to immerse myself in this, learn it, hopefully introduce it in a simple package to serve entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I love that. You touched on something I think is really interesting. you obviously are engaged in writing and creating content on a regular basis. I mean, you have so much out there. And it seems like you've really dealt with being a perfectionist because, look, you're saying, hey, the books aren't perfect going out. We're creating second editions and all of that. How do you deal with that? I mean, most authors I talk to, it's so difficult for them to let go of something that they know, maybe there's something I missed. They don't even know what it is, but they're afraid.
Yeah, I follow. For me, it's a simple principle. Is this the best of me in this moment?
Yeah.
Like, is truly the best of me? I write every day. I start at 6 a.m. It's a religious habit. I actually do it with other authors. I think it's a powerful thing to do it through a group. We connect via Zoom. We don't talk. We just say, here's our hour of writing. So we spend a power hour from 6 to 7 Eastern time every morning. And I'm constantly writing. When I produce a book, this is not my words. This came from a book called On Writing Well. The essence of writing is rewriting, is keep on consolidating and compressing it so it becomes better and better. You keep polishing it. But at a certain point, I get to, this is the best of who I am now. And when I put it out there, I also know more will present itself. But if I put the best of myself out here right now, Profit First, for example, the current iteration, the white cover, that's the second version of the book. It used to be a blue cover. And it was the best of me in that moment. And then it was being consumed by readers, and I was soliciting their feedback. I encourage all authors to do that. Actively engage with your readership and say, what can I do better? And some of them will tell you. Candidly. When you hear enough times, that's something you could do better. And it helped me improve the system. The interesting thing in the release of the revised and expanded edition, the book almost immediately doubled, if not tripled, in daily sales volume just because the book had improved so much. So that's how I do it.
Love it. I love it. How long have you been meeting with this group of authors? And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. What does that look like? I mean, you said we don't talk. We show up on Zoom. So how long have you been doing that, and what spurred that?
Yeah, so I've been doing it actively probably for 2 years. The group's existed longer than that. It's run by a popular writer. Her name's AJ Harper. And she just started this, I think out of a whim. She coaches and teaches people specifically on writing skills. And she's like, hey, why don't you come join the group? And I joined it. I was like, I'm addicted. I don't miss it.
No kidding.
It's such a great habit. I did it this morning. Yeah. And honestly, most of the time I write, it's like, this is the worst material that has ever come out of my finger. It's like, this is such crap. But thank God, this won't make it into a book. Yeah. And thank God I expelled this because it'd probably be bouncing around in my head for a while. I can get to the good stuff. Yeah. So every one of those writing days, maybe 1/10 of it, maybe I write on average in an hour, 600 words, maybe 1,000 if I'm really just cruising, but it is shit. It is shit. At the end of a week, it's probably 500 good words, but 500 good words a week over a year, that's 25,000 good words. That's half of a book. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love that. The way this group is set up, is there, an introduction moment? Is there any discussion, or is it just you show up? Yeah. So the format is AJ will come on and say, why are we here? What's your intention to be here today? I'm going to serve my readers, or whatever you feel compelled to say. And some people put in chat. Sometimes it's 5 people. Sometimes it's like a shocking, 20 people at 6 a.m. Yeah. Everyone, hats pulled down, coffee, the grimace. And then we sprint for 20 minutes. She's like, all right, it's go time. Yeah. And after 20 minutes, we stop. And she goes, how many words have you written? Post in the chat. Tell me how you're feeling. Sometimes there's a little game played. She'll say, what's the last word you wrote? And she'll pick 3 or 4 people out. And the word's buzzard. And she's like, why did you write buzzard? And you give context. Then we go for 20 minutes. And we try to do again for the last piece, which usually isn't 20 minutes. It's about 17 minutes, 3 sprints, and you're done. Love it. Love it. I've never actually heard that before. Maybe that's a common thing, but I've never heard that before. I don't know if it's that common. That's gold right there. I mean, I told AJ, she isn't built for this. I'm like, AJ, are you crazy? Yeah. Like charge it. This is the one thing I won't miss ever. Right. She says, no, I can't charge for this. but she gets to get students out of it that just are crazy about her. So maybe it's a great marketing platform. Wow. Well, that's fantastic. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. That's Tell me, you obviously have a ton that you've written. Profit First is, it's like Journey's Don't Stop Believing a little bit. Right. It's his song. Right. Right. It's like, and so probably people are always asking about that or whatever, but that may not be what you feel like is your most brilliant stuff. Right. I don't necessarily feel it's my most brilliant, but I feel most compelled to talk about it. Okay. Listen, if I go see a Journey concert, which actually I did. Right. I did too. Yeah. If they don't play Don't Stop Believing, I'm done. If that isn't the encore, I'm pissed.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
A band has an obligation to play its number one hit.
Right.
An author has an obligation to speak upon the most favorite topic.
Right.
I'll talk about Profit First all freaking day long. It isn't my favorite. It is my favorite in the impact it's had. I am so honored that I have a piece of work that's touched the life of some people in a significant way.
Yeah.
My favorite work is actually my least popular. It was Surge. And that's actually, of all my books, is the least consumed. It was something I explored in writing that I did in my other books. My other books are very linear how-to. This one was more ethereal, more considerate of concepts. It was my homage to like a Malcolm Gladwell kind of concept. And definitely is not my playground, but it was fun for me to write. So I enjoyed that the most, but I'm most appreciative of what Profit First has done.
Love it. Love it. Give me a little bit more about Surge. Obviously that's your favorite. So tell me, what's the idea behind it? Give me a little more.
So I think I found the key to unlock effective marketing, and it's not marketing. What it is identifying where there's growing demand and there's inadequate supply. And it's actually pretty easy to predict. All markets are in movements. And if you put a market into a channel, like a niche of some sort, and you simply monitor it, you'll see how it's changing, and you can start identifying where there's lacking supply. Here's the analogy. If you and I were walking through the desert and we're dying of thirst, and someone puts a stand selling water there, we're going to buy the water. Yeah. Prices of no relevance. Quality doesn't even matter. Bacteria, we'll take it. Muddy, we'll take it. We don't care. The only time that becomes a problem for that vendor is when the next water guy shows up and he's got clean water and it's half the price.
Yeah.
But that's when competition sets in. There is a time when there's inadequate supply and competition is almost irrelevant in any market, and it's constantly moving. Surge is putting yourself in front of that so you can ride that momentum.
I love it. I love it. Maybe even a little discourse on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency with all of that being said.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Really interesting. So as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going right to Amazon and buying it.
Oh.
No, seriously.
You're the guy who's buying it.
No, I love marketing. I mean, I love that whole idea.
Me
and
too.
That's a very interesting way to think about marketing, rather than thinking about it from the standpoint of, convincing somebody or presenting yourself in the best way possible, really thinking instead about supply and demand. I really love that. That's
I think that is step two. Step one is supply demand.
Right.
But step two is when competition sets in, now you have to persuade and convince. Right. We have an obligation to do that. And I believe it is an obligation. So my next book coming out is on the obligation to market. Right now, if we look at your business or my business, I both believe we could argue, compared to our competition, your business is likely superior in many ways. You are a better offering than your competition. You've put more effort, more time into it. And I can say the same about when I analyze my competition. Therefore, if you are better than your competition and I'm better than my competition, you and I, we have a damned responsibility to market.
That's right.
If the customer buys elsewhere, it's a disservice. It's their problem, but it's our fault.
Yeah.
So I believe the second stage is to, if we truly believe we are of better service, we damn it have to market.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Absolutely. It's a compelling argument, and I couldn't agree more. I tell people on a regular basis, look, if you don't earn money from your passion, then you're going to have to leave your passion and you're going to have to get a job to make money, and you're not going to be serving people in your passion any longer.
Right.
So you sure as heck better figure out how to monetize your passion if it's monetizable, right?
Right.
Yeah. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, let's change gears for just a minute. Let's talk about, you're continuing to write books. You have a new book coming out. You've just mentioned that. Love the idea of that one as well. Cool stories. How have your books grown your authority, put you at the forefront of your marketplace? How do they continue to do that for you?
So speaking engagements is the first thing. I know we were talking offline a little bit about it. I dictate an absurd honorarium, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it wasn't this way 12 years ago when my first book came out. I had to pay an absurd amount of money to get a vendor booth,
right, to
try to hawk one book. There is a interesting, almost like hockey stick type of situation. Over time, I got a few gigs for a couple thousand, and then 10,000, and then 20,000. And now I can't believe like some of the figures that are being placed my way because of the perceived value. I believe that for some authors, the volume of books we can sell moves us from an educational platform to almost like a celebrity platform, like a mini celebrity. Listen, there's guys like Simon Sinek. Those people are celebrities.
Yeah.
He dictates an extraordinary premium because when he walks on stage, an audience will run not even knowing what the event's about or he's about. There's a certain point where an author becomes an audience draw. And that's when all of a sudden you start getting this. I've experienced elements of that. In small communities, I have enough authority that people are like, oh, because Mike's speaking, I'm going to go see that. And event hosts and stuff recognize that. And that's when they start paying big dollars. So to me, it's wonderful. Yeah. It's shocking and it's a privilege. That's one element. I think what's really cool too is the access to other authors. Like you sit in the green room with like Dave Ramsey and Seth Godin. This was just last year. I spoke at Entre Leadership, one of the events hosted by Dave Ramsey, and just sitting there, it's like, hey, what's going on? Like, hey, what are you doing? It's like all of a sudden you're having like a regular conversation as opposed to a couple of years ago, I'm sitting there salivating like, oh, can I touch Dave Ramsey's hand? Like, oh my God, the access to these people, and then how generous and kind most of those people are. Yeah. I'll speak to a couple of people. Don Miller, one of the most extraordinary humans, he wrote Storybrand, invited me to his house along with other authors. I said, hey, I want to get some authors together. He's like, I'm the host. I'm paying for everything. Just get everyone down here. Wow. And so I'll never forget. It was me, Don Miller, Ryan Holiday. It was all guys in this case. John Gordon, who wrote Energy Bus. James Clear, Atomic Habits. Yeah, I love that book. Yeah. So I'm sitting, James Clear, Ryan, and we're just sitting like just breaking bread for a day. And then we go out and party together. Like to have access to those guys. Just to give you context, I did a call with an entrepreneurial group that said, hey, we're doing a book study. Would you be willing to hop on for 5 minutes? I'm like, absolutely. Hop on. And one of the people there is like, oh, I'm kind of fanboying right now. I'm really sorry. And he goes, if there's one other person here, I would lose my mind. It would be if James Clear was here. I was like, oh, I was just texting with James just about a minute ago. And they're like, ah! And the guy fell off his chair. Love that. So the access to people that I admire and aspire to be like, to learn from it gets you indoors you would never get in, you know? Yeah. Very, very motivating. I love that. The books that you've already written are doing this for you. Yeah. But you don't seem to be slowing down writing books at all, right? No. Wait, give me insight into that. It's more than just a habit for you, clearly. No, it's actually a panic, and maybe it's probably compulsive. So, and truly, I've been diagnosed what's called hypomania. Hypomania is 1 degree below mania. Mania is where there's no control. Okay. Hypo is you're barely holding the reins. Okay. So I'm a hypomaniac. And I love that term. So that's a sign of a hypomaniac who loves that they have a problem. Well, people that are listening to this are like, wow, how can I become a hypomaniac? Yeah. You're making it sound great. Don't do it. So there's this overwhelming compulsion to produce. But honestly, the beacon is a clear life purpose. So I identified for myself, I have to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. And that is this perception, you start a business and the world thinks you're successful and you're struggling. That's why I call it entrepreneurial poverty. It's hidden. And because of my own stories, my own experiences, that is very visceral for me. I don't think I have enough lifespan, regardless how long I live, to complete the work. So there's an urgency to write. My own publisher's like a little bit of an anomaly. First of all, I don't have an agent. I think a couple of reasons why not have an agent, but one of the reasons is an agent slows you down. I don't have time to deal with an agent to get the publisher. So I work directly with the publishers, the president of the publishing department, and say, listen, we got to work together or I got to find someone else. Right. And they're like, we got you. You're a weirdo. The second thing is when you go mainstream publishing, you publish a book, it goes to print, you pitch your next book, you go to print. And so there's usually like a 3-year gap, you'll notice. Terrible. Among most of them. Yeah, 3 to 5 it's awful. Years. Yeah. Me, I submit, and once I get the manuscript approved, so there's some copy edit, developmental stuff, before proofreading, right between this gap, there's like a 2 or 3 week gap, they accept the manuscript and say, here's your next royalty check. And then they say, now we're going to proofread. That's my gap to pitch another book and get a contract, which is very atypical. Yeah. So I'm right now, my new book, it's called Get Different. It's going to be published in September of 21. I'm in contract for my new book that I started writing already that's coming out in 2022. So I'm stepping on the books, which is atypical.
Yeah, I love it. You mentioned earlier, I talk about something we call the hierarchy of desire, and you talked about celebrity, right?
Yeah.
And so, just truth be told, when you have books and multiple books, there is a bit of a step stool process. When you add that to speaking engagements, media PR, Wall Street Journal, MSNBC, things like that, you are a celebrity in that space. Now,
a Z list. Like, I don't go through an airport. I don't go through an airport and people are like, oh my God, it's Mike Michalowicz.
Yeah, but we don't want to be those kinds of celebrities. I'm sure you don't want that, right?
I actually had that once where I was walking through a large venue. I can't remember what it was. A woman goes, oh my God, like the top of her lungs, that's Mike Michalowicz. And everyone looks back at her and goes, who the fuck's that guy? And I'm like, Mike Michalowicz. Hi, I'm Mike Michalowicz. And she's like, you don't know? And they're like, no. And then it was just the most deflating experience ever. But I will tell you this. I did have had cool moments. It's interesting to your point. I've done television work and books, radio, stuff like that. It starts as a stepping stone, right? So you write a book. No one notices it. I remember my launch day. So I launched the book. On day one, I sold 0 books. And to give that some context, my own mother didn't buy a book that day.
Right. It was 0, yeah.
It was a shitty day. But it put this burning desire to sell books. And you start selling enough books. And then it's like, oh, maybe I can speak at some colleges. So I spoke at a couple colleges, gratis, but at least I was in there. I sell a couple books. Then Penguin calls and said, hey, your book scan numbers are pretty extraordinary for self-pub. Do you want to do a main pub? I'm like, yeah. And you kind of start stepping.
Yeah.
Ends up, I did a pilot for a reality show. It was called Go Big or Stay Home. It never went anywhere. But there I am in Lake Tahoe for a week with camera crew, a crew of like 15 people running around.
Yeah.
And I'm the host of this show.
Yeah.
But just to kind of wrap that story, everyone had nicknames for each other. It was real cool. They had the food tent, like the whole thing. One of the interns comes up and says, hey, we're getting coffee. Would you like a cup of coffee? I'm like, sure. It comes back and it says Hoss, Hoss on it. And I'm like, in this moment, I'm like, I'm the Hoss. Like my ego, I'm like, oh my nickname's Hoss. This is awesome. I said, why did you guys choose Hoss? I said to the producer of the show. He says, that doesn't say Hoss. It says host. He looks at me and goes, no one knows what the fuck your name is.
That's great. Oh, that's
no
great.
one knew my name. And it just said host guy. Oh my God.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, just like any endeavor in life, the second I think we get too inflated of our importance, someone upstairs says, no, you ain't that big of a deal, you know?
Well, look, I love your humility with it, but there are people that are paying you big speaking fees to be on stages because of what you've done, because of what you know, right? And you're making massive impact on millions of people with your books, and evidently aren't slowing down. Evidently, your mania has you driven to do more and more and more.
Yeah, I won't stop. I believe in nothing more than authorship. I truly do. I don't think the world needs more books. I think the world needs to discover more great books. And it's a shame that people aren't putting the effort in as authors. A lot of people are writing, they're not becoming authors. Authors where you take ownership over the responsibility to market this, to get the word out, because it is important. Like we talked about, if your book is better, you have a damned responsibility for the world to discover it.
Love it. Love it. Mike, I think that's a great way to end it. Where can people find you? Where do you want to send them to? A website in particular, or just to go to Amazon?
I'll say on a website. It would be MikeMichalowicz.com, but I'll never use that because no one can spell Michalowicz. Go to Mike Motorbike, as in the motorcycle, MikeMotorbike.com.
Nice.
My nickname from high school. And I've never driven a motorcycle. That's a little side story.
Okay.
But that was my nickname. So you go to MikeMotorbike.com. That brings you to my site. You can see all the books I'm doing. Maybe as an author, you can copy some of the ideas and implement them in your own business.
Love it. Mike, thanks so much. Thanks for your authenticity. Thanks for sharing. Love the humor. And can't wait to go buy Surge. That's the first thing I'm going to do.
I appreciate that. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.